When a train goes express, it just keeps going without stopping and usually gets there a bit quicker. When Edge TV goes express, it's talking about, according to the dictionary, when I can find it, to put into words, to show, manifest or reveal, to set forth the opinions, feelings, etc. of oneself, as in speaking, writing or painting. We're talking about how you express yourself in life, and probably in a broader sense we're talking about work, life choices, creativity, how we use our time and abilities and opportunities in life. It's an important kind of topic. So what did you want to be, or what do you want to be when you grow up?
I wanted to be a dentist, which I know is a kind of weird thing, but I really liked my dentist. He was really nice and he was a bit of my hero, and so I wanted to be a dentist. And I think my mother talked me out of it because she said putting your hands inside people's dirty mouths is kind of gross, and yeah.
Fair enough.
I wanted to be a motorcycle racer because my uncle was one and I loved watching him race and he was my hero. So.
That's a bit of a theme.
Yep.
I wanted to be a doctor, and obviously that's worked out so well. I'm an editor now
Doctor
instead.
of words.
Yeah.
So are you all failures?
Things
Are you
change.
bitter and twisted?
No.
What do you want to do when you grow up, Melody?
Retire.
That's a long-term plan, or is that a short-term plan?
Hopefully more short-term than long, but anyway.
Fair enough. What did you want to do when you were growing up?
A policewoman, actually.
Yeah? So none of us have done what we thought we
Well,
were
what
going
did
to
you
do.
want to be, Nathan?
I don't know. I asked the questions, not answer the questions. No, I came across a few things, and I went to law school and studied law. So on one stage I must have thought that was what I was going to do. But then I retired from that. And I think many people go through different stages of life and different ideas and different things of what we want to do. And I guess how you get there and where you end up is an interesting experience of life. We asked some young people in a youth group what they had to say about that, and these were some of their responses for Edge TV.
When I grow up, I'd really like to be in something to do with animals, and yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I really like drawing and designing stuff, so maybe architecture.
I do chemistry and business management, which could possibly help me, yeah.
Doing art and design and technology and maths, so.
I normally express creativity in like my writing or something like that. I'll write something down because I'm not really creative in my drawing, so yeah.
Yeah, sometimes just like to draw and get out a piece of paper and just find something that's inspirational and try to put it down onto paper, or like music and playing the piano, so that's good as well. I haven't really had to face that many major life-changing decisions, so I guess just, yeah, parents are good for help.
I'd probably normally go to my parents, just talk about it, because they would be really interested in what I want to do and try and help me get to where I want to be.
Some thoughts on expression and other aspects of living life. For Edge TV, we're talking about different aspects of how we use our time, how we use our life and abilities and talents. And so it's not just about work, it's about other things that we do. So just as a point of interest, in what way are you creative?
I like to write. I like to take photos. I like to scrapbook. I like to knit.
You're going on.
Yeah, I think we should stop there.
Oh, I don't think I'm actually very creative. I used to write a bit, but not so much anymore. I used to write sort of plays and sort of things, stories and things like that. But no, I'd say I'm a not very creative person. I'm not.
You reckon?
That's why I
I'm not going to argue with you.
Photography, painting, drawing, all that kind of stuff. Of course, word things and that kind of thing.
Talking. I like storytelling. And it's so much fun to just have an idea of where the story's going to end up and just create the characters,
get there.
build it. Yep. I loved it. Storytelling. Bedtimes are great with my kids.
With your kids, yep. Yeah, it's an interesting kind of thing, the whole idea of creativity. Why do you think we are creative? You know, most people have some kind, except Clancy, we'll just ignore her for a moment. Most people have some kind of creative, at least interest, even if they don't ever get around to doing it. There's all this stuff that they'd like to do. Everybody would like to paint a picture or write a song or write a book or whatever it is they want to do. Knit a beanie. Why do you think people are creative?
It's probably an inherent reflection of who God is. I mean, in the very beginning of the Bible, He created.
And we're meant to be, created in His image, and so I guess part of that image is the creativity of it. So.
Do you think it's important for, I guess from a Christian perspective, you're saying it's inherent, but is it something we should even focus on or work on?
I think without being creative, we would just be following whatever we were told to do, even if we are following in the footsteps of our parents or whatever, we still do it our own way, and that is takes a level of creativity to say, no, I want to be this kind of person, I want to do it this way. I think it's impossible not to be creative.
Maybe you'll have to have an argument with Clancy before this is finished. Sounds good. You've been thinking around some of these issues, Adele. What have you been thinking?
Well, I was thinking we like to compartmentalise our lives sometimes as Christians, and have it sort of separate for Saturdays only or Sundays if you attend church on Sundays, or else have it only around certain people and not around others. But Christianity should be part of our everyday lives, regardless of where we are or who we're around, and it should be influencing the way in which we conduct our lives, the way we act, work or create, and I guess the way we express ourselves just in general. We can know the theory, read the Bible, check out books or other material relating to spiritual matters, and go to church. But we also need to put the theory into practice. I think there are, so many people in the Bible who are supremely creative. Like you look at people like Solomon, who was, a poet and an architect, and all of these other things, and other people who were dressmakers, writers, and musicians. And they were deeply passionate about God, and their passion for God informed their art and their daily lives, and there's sort of this blending of everything into just this expression of God in their life.
Cool. I'm sure Scott has a creative angle on this topic for us. This is Scott's Silly Answer on Edge TV.
What did Samson's hair have to do with his strength? A strong argument that gels with everyone has yet to be found in this tangled debate. The Bible talks about his hair being a source of his strength. This is because Samson used the hair strengthening shampoo Steroid Silk. To the average user, this had no noticeable effect, but because Samson washed his hair after every meal due to it falling into his food each time, and with the huge quantities of steroid silk needed each time due to the large amount of hair he had, it slowly absorbed into his body through osmosis. We notice, when his hair was cut, there was no more washing and the effects wore off. Coincidence? Did you know, according to Judges 15, Samson was the creator of Firefox, a fast way to access all the local farmers' produce from one location.
In some way, it is some kind of expression of something. That's Scott's Silly Answer here on Edge TV. We'll be back with more in a moment. Welcome back to Edge TV. We're talking about expressing ourselves and our faith through work, creativity and life choices. We set Dave the task of contemplating this for a bit, and this is what he came up with.
This is Dave on the Edge. One night when I was putting my kids to bed, they asked for a story from the Bible, but they wanted it to be about dragons and swords, and I realized that there was a story in the Bible about a dragon. So I told the story from Revelation 12 about Michael and the dragon and the angels and how Michael defeated the dragon. And a number of weeks later, we were sitting at the dinner table talking about, what are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to be when you grow up? It was the question we were asking. And that night, as I was putting Mikey to bed, my littlest boy, my middle child, he said, Dad, I know what I'm going to do when I grow up. And I said, really, Mikey, what are you going to do when you grow up? He said, I'm going to kill the devil. I said, you're going to what? He said, I'm going to kill the devil. And I said, how are you going to kill the devil? He said, well, I guess I'll have to make a sword. I'll melt some metal and make it into a sword, and I'll poke him in the tummy. And as a pastor, my mind started going, I should tell this kid that Jesus died on the cross to save us from the power of sin and that Jesus has defeated the devil. But I was so overwhelmed by little Mikey's mind that I had to ask him, Mikey, what makes you think of all the people in the world that you're the one person who's going to kill the devil? And you know, he looked in my eyes and he looked at me like I was missing something really obvious. And he said, Dad, I am Michael. He had heard his name, Michael, in that story 3 weeks ago about the dragon. And he had realized, that must be my job. I've been written about in the Bible. I've got to get ready. And you know, the Bible does tell us that we do have a role to play in this end time. But luckily, we don't have to kill the devil. And Mikey knows that now. But when we do get involved for God, when we apply our creativity and pick a role that we can serve in that leads other people toward the kingdom, we're doing our bit to bring them to heaven and away from the defeat that the devil's going to have happen to him. This has been Dave on the Edge. Where do you stand?
An interesting story from the life and family and travails of Brother Dave. It's interesting to have someone, a story about that, hearing from someone that has this real set purpose in life, because and perhaps it's easier to be certain when you're young. But so much of life we seem to be looking for what we should be about. And I guess particularly at a certain stage in life, and you try, what should I do with my life? It's one of the big decisions that we all come up against, and some people seem to solve it and know where they're going from there, and other people seem to wrestle with it their whole lives. What do we do with those kind of questions? How do we find our purpose or our vocation or our direction in life?
Mine has always been just to have fun where you are, enjoy what you're doing. One of the things my wife and I do, because in ministry they move you around a lot, is we always holiday in the place where we live. It's because we said we're only going to live here for a few years. So if we live in the Melbourne area, we holiday around Victoria, around where we live, rather than going a long ways away. And so I think the same can be done in your personal life as well, is that you say, well, this is the job I have right now. I'm going to make the most of it, be the best I can be, learn some things that I wouldn't have learned if I didn't have this job, and have fun in life.
Well, the other thing as well is to go look at yourself and see what you're interested in, and that would generally bring you to the direction that you would want to do.
That makes the most sense. I guess so.
I try to.
That's cool. But that sort of, is there a right answer for what I should do with my life? Is there an answer, or is there, many young people growing up as Christians will say, what does God want me to do with my life? As if God has this is the ideal plan. This, then that, and that's your life. Do you think God has those kind of plans for people's lives?
Well, lots of people would say so, because there's plenty of people that say that they feel called. There's this great term that is very sort of nebulous what it actually means. I feel called to being a teacher. I feel God is calling me to be a nurse. And of course, the most common one, I feel God is calling me to work in a church as a pastor. And yeah, that is an interesting question. Does that apply to everybody? Or does God only single out a special few that he wants for specific tasks? Or is there a vocation for every single person? Does God have a calling for every person's lives? Or is there a sort of area where God would sort of be happy for you to be?
I think in the Bible he did call specific people, but then there were so many other people that he just used at the time, you know, made use, and they were able to help him with whatever it was that he needed and just do that perfectly in where they were. So, you know, I think maybe, sure, some people might have the thing from birth that they're called to do whatever job it might be, but then that doesn't mean that, you know, God can't use us regardless. Like, he can use us whatever we're doing, I think.
I like to also think that God actually calls us to be, you know, 10 different options. So he doesn't call us to be that one occupation, and he gives us 10 choices, and it's up to us to decide which of the 10 we want to be in, rather than, you know, this is it and that's the straight line that you have to walk.
Yeah, there's probably some things that don't fit with who we are and what we can do. I don't think I'll ever be a ballerina.
A bit too tall.
It's just not me. And so there probably are some things that are naturally ruled out for most people. I mean, every so often you come across these talented people that seem they can just do anything and do it well, or do everything and do it well, whatever it is. It's an interesting kind of discussion, and perhaps, I guess my perspective on it is that we are not so much looking for this one thing that God wants us to do, but we're looking to commit our lives to God and say, God, in doing this, you know, use me to do the best and most useful thing with it, and help it to grow into something that can be. That still doesn't make it an easy question, and when you have so many, you know, many options or possibilities or opportunities in life, picking the right one isn't necessarily easy. For a biblical perspective on this, we asked Clancy Rogers to think about it, and this is what she had to say.
Often when I'm getting ready to go on a long flight, I find myself wondering who I'll be sitting next to and whether they're going to be talkative or not. I've heard many stories about people who get into interesting and heated conversations with the person next to them about what they do for a living or what religion they are. My first international flight after I started working for a church had me thinking like this. I wondered what would happen when they asked me what I did or what I believed, and I answered, I work as a pastor, or I'm a Christian. Would they be interested or hostile? Would they make sure I couldn't see which movie they were watching or what they were reading? Would they ask me to help them with an in-flight conversion? I was really interested and a little bit nervous. I was nervous because sometimes when people find out that you are a Christian, they can get pretty angry. And it's not hard to see why. We've all heard of people who have had their trust broken, their lives damaged, and their picture of what Jesus is all about warped through their experiences with people who claim to follow Jesus. Telling someone that you follow Jesus can be pretty scary. What if they get angry? What if they have been hurt? Wouldn't it be better or easier to just be quiet about our faith? Well, it would be easier, but that's not what God calls us to do. Jesus called his followers to be beacons, living lives that shine light onto what God is really like. In 2 Corinthians 5 verse 20, Paul called believers in Jesus to be ambassadors for Christ, as though God were making his appeal through us. The Apostle Peter called Christians to be ready at any time to explain to people why we have this hope in Jesus. But he said to do this with gentleness and respect in 1 Peter 3:15. People need to know about Jesus, that he loves them and came to save them. Followers of Jesus are called to tell people this. Tell them about what he has done and about what he is like. We are also called to show people about him. So if you meet someone who is angry at Christians or has a messed up picture of God because of how he's been presented, the way you treat these people and the way you answer them can help to fix their broken picture. I'm Clancy Rogers for Edge TV.
The Express edition of Edge TV, and we're talking about work, life choices and creativity. So why do you think work is important from a Christian perspective?
I've heard lots of people say that if you don't work, you can't rest. So if you don't, they talk about Sabbath, and it says, 6 days, you're given 6 days to do all your work, and the seventh you can rest. And if you're not working all of those days, then you don't have any right to keep the Sabbath and have a rest because you're meant to work. And I've pointed out to this people that says, you have 6 days to do all your work, but sometimes you can't fill every single minute of every single day working. And people who do tend to hate their job after a while or hate what they're doing.
Yeah, it's It has sort of been, you talk about a work ethic that's been a part of some Christian traditions, that you
Yes.
have to work hard, and
Yes.
good honest toil keeps you faithful and is good for your soul, or something like that. Is there a bit more to a theology of work than that?
I guess, even if you just go back to creation, God put Adam and Eve in charge of looking after things, and I guess that kind of is work in some ways, was managing the Garden of Eden, and then, after that, toiling for what they would get, in terms of food and all of that kind of thing once they were kicked out of the garden.
Well, the other question is, if you don't work, what are you going to do?
Go golfing.
You get bored of it eventually.
Yeah.
But even Paul says that people should work. I think he says somewhere that if you don't work, you shouldn't eat.
Well, you shouldn't be fed. Yeah, you shouldn't
What
get...
constitutes working then?
But then, I think we need to get a bigger definition of work than just turning up at a place of employment and being paid to put in however many hours and go home, because work, of course, is a much bigger thing than that, and it's sort of anything we do, I guess, and at attempt at trying to come up with a definition, anything we do that contributes to somehow positively to somebody's life, our lives or somebody else's, or for the betterment of a group of people or something like that. And it could be, in a family situation, a parent works to look after children, to keep house, whatever those kind of things are, and that's work. Some of it's not much fun, but it's some of the things that you just are a part of ordinary life. So how does Christian faith impact on that?
Well, Paul says, whatever you do, do it to the glory of God, and do it to your full. But that all that we do is about, and no matter if it's work or play, that we as creators, creations of God, that we're created in His image. And so therefore anything we do reveals, hopefully, if we're connected to God, reveals His nature. And so we would want to do things that represent Him well. So in the way we do our work, in the way we do our play, we want to represent God.
Okay. That's a serious kind of thing. Does it make a difference in what we do each day?
Well, in a way, just building on what David has said, it builds up our work ethic. And if Christians all have a similar work ethic that brings benefit to your employer, it reflects Christ in a way. Because, Christians are great employees.
We should be.
Something.
Should be.
Yeah. Or should be.
Is a Christian working on a farm or in a factory or in an office, are they different, or should they be different from your average, the employee working next to them?
Well, does that come down? That's interesting, because that's talking about somebody as a worker or as a factory person or as a taxi driver. That means that their job becomes then. Could you look at it from a bigger perspective? Are Christians as people meant to be different? And so if that is so, then that naturally should translate into everything that we do, be it the way we shop and the way we talk to people and the way we play sport and the way we work.
Yeah, fair enough. We asked Jared to check out some of the possibilities about work, life choices and creativity from the history of Edge magazine.
Thanks, Nathan. And in our work, we have created edges which you can look at from the past on www.edgeonweb.org. And in issue 43, we looked at creative goodness, and we did an interview with Jim Lounsbury, who is a Adventist filmmaker, and also Lance Bolton, who is a drama director. And in some ways, these guys use their creativity to help create things that are good. So we also looked at issue 27 and careers, and why work for the church, should you work for the church, and some different avenues you can explore. So check those out at www.edgeonweb.org.
What we do with our lives is an important part of who we are as people and of who we are as Christians. It's another way of believing in Christ and living the life. Thank you for being a part of the Express episode of Edge TV, and we'll look forward to catching up with you next time.